I sat in the car, staring at the front door. My heart was heavy, as if weighed down by the silence that had been growing between us for months. There was a time when coming home to Lisa filled me with comfort. Her smile, her laugh, the way she would rush to tell me about her day. But those moments had faded, leaving behind only unease. It was subtle at first, the changes. A coldness that slipped in between our conversations, words that no longer felt like they belonged to us. I would reach for her at night, but her warmth seemed distant, as if she was somewhere else entirely. Still, I told myself it was nothing. Relationships go through phases, I thought. But it was hard to ignore the tension that settled between us, thick and unmoving like fog on a winter morning. The arguments began small, almost trivial. "You never listened to me," she would say, turning her back to me after I asked what was wrong. "You are always so busy." It felt like she was angry at me for things I did not even understand. I would try to make it right, but she had already checked out of the conversation before it started. It was not long before she began finding excuses to leave the house, sometimes in the middle of a fight. "Just going to the store," she would say, avoiding my eyes as she slipped on her coat. I wanted to believe her. After all, what kind of man would I be if I could not trust my own wife? But every time she walked out that door, a hollow ache bloomed in my chest. The trips grew longer, the reasons vaguer. There were moments when I would hear the ping of her phone in the middle of dinner, and she would reach for it quickly, too quickly. My mind started racing with suspicions I did not want to acknowledge. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the doubt gnawed at me, especially when she began to mention new friends, people I had never met. I asked her once to introduce me, and she waved it off with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "They are just from work," she said, but the way she kept her phone close made it feel like she was guarding something much bigger. It all came to a head one evening when she was late coming home again. She had said she would run to the pharmacy, but hours passed, and her absence was louder than anything else in the house. I sat on the couch, staring at the clock, waiting. My hands shook as I texted her, but no reply came. My stomach turned with anxiety as midnight approached. When she finally came through the door, her face was pale. She mumbled something about traffic, but the guilt was all over her. Her hair was tousled, her shirt wrinkled. It was as if the woman I married had been replaced by a stranger. The room felt suffocating, the silence unbearable. I wanted to ask, but my throat closed up. A part of me was terrified of what she would say if I pushed. Days passed, and I felt like I was living with a ghost. Lisa's affection for me was gone, replaced by an eerie detachment. She would leave for quick errands more often, staying out longer each time. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, but my gut told me something darker was at play. One night, after a particularly heated argument about her late-night trips, I noticed a detail that chilled me. She had taken her phone into the bathroom with her. I knocked on the door, and she snapped at me, telling me she needed space. Her voice was sharp, colder than it had ever been. And that was when I knew. I could no longer ignore the signs that had been staring me in the face all along. The first clue came later that week. I was sitting in the kitchen, my coffee growing cold as I tried to focus on the work in front of me. Her phone buzzed loudly on the table, and without thinking, I glanced at the screen. The name Ryan appeared, a name I had never heard before. My heart sank as she quickly snatched the phone away. "It is just a colleague," she said, but her voice was shaky, her smile strained. That was the first crack. The second clue came a few days later. Lisa was in the shower, and I could hear her humming softly through the door. Out of curiosity, I opened her laptop, something I had never done before. I found an open message window, and my breath caught. The messages between her and Ryan were not work-related. They were filled with late-night confessions, inside jokes, moments they had shared that I had never known about. There was even a photo of them together at a park, a place we used to go. My chest tightened, and my hands felt cold. Still, I did not say anything. I was not ready to confront her yet. I needed more. The third clue came when she left her coat on the chair after one of her quick errands. As I picked it up, something slipped out of the pocket. A receipt from a hotel. Her signature was clear at the bottom. My mind raced. She had never mentioned a hotel. The reality of it all hit me like a punch to the gut. The life we had built together, the years of trust and love, had been dismantled behind my back. That night, I waited for her to come home. My heart pounded in my chest, anger bubbling beneath the surface. When she walked through the door, her smile faded as soon as she saw my face. The hotel receipt lay on the table between us, an undeniable truth. I asked her how long it had been going on. She did not even try to deny it. Her eyes were full of regret, but no apology came. Instead, she just stood there, silent, as if waiting for me to say something. The betrayal was too much. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to know how she could do this to me, but then something shifted. A flicker of guilt flashed across her face, and she whispered, "It is not what you think." I stared at her, trying to make sense of her words. How could it not be what I thought? She had been lying, sneaking around, and hiding the truth from me. But then she continued, her voice trembling. "I found out I am pregnant," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "And it is yours." I froze. The world tilted, and for a moment I could not breathe.